Welcome back, guys. Today I'm going to talk about how to use a stamp, what drying stage your clay should be in, and just some general tips and tricks when using a stamp. I know it may sound like a very no-brainer type thing, but if you're using a stamp and you're using it in the wrong drying stage, or if you're using it in the wrong spot on your pot, it could possibly crack or deform it in some way. So in today's video, I'm going to talk specifically on how to use your stamp and where I like to place mine at. So let's dig right in. This is a stamp that I just made. As you can see, it is going to leave a depression in my pot, along with some negative space there that's been carved in, which is going to raise part of my stamp. So you're going to have depression in certain stages and a raised value in certain stages. You can tell by this stamp about the thickness or the width that I want to really get into my pot. So what I have here is I have a leather hard, or a hard leather vessel, clay vessel. And these clay vessels, or any clay vessel at the hard leather stage, is going to be hard for me to fully depress this into. So if I wanted to use this, I would need either a softer pot, or I would have to have a smaller stamp. Because this stamp is very big, it takes up a lot of surface area, the depression on this is going to be a lot harder for me to get on compared to if I had a small stamp. If I had a small stamp that I still need to get in pretty deep, I could use that on the bottom of my pot or places that I think my pot are going to be the thickest. So when adding a stamp, you need to think about these factors. You need to think about, what do I want my stamp to look like? Do I want to have a depression in my pot, or do I want to have raised values in my pot, or do I want to have both? This has a little bit of both, and usually most stamps are going to have a little bit of both, or at least most of my stamps are going to have a little bit of both. But you could do it either way. So the things to really think about here are, where can I use my stamp at? Where can I use my stamp at on the pot? And then also, what stage or what drying stage can I use the stamp at? Some stages are better for certain stamps. This stamp, because of how thick this stamp really is and how big this stamp really is, it would be more of a textural stamp. I would use this to make a lot of patterns or textures on my pot, and usually you want to do that at a lighter stage, at a wetter stage. So you want to do that when your pot is, say, soft leather. Right now this is hard leather. There's a leather stage before this where it might be possible to use the stamp as well, but the soft leather to leather stage is going to be better to use with a pot that is, or to use with a stamp that is big, which means it covers a lot of surface area, which this does. Usually maker's marks are very small, but this stamp would be good to use during the soft leather stage and the leather stage. Now I could try and use this on my pot, and I think I could maybe get away with stamping this pot using this stamp, but that comes with a lot of experience and a lot of understanding on how your clay body works. So if you're a more experienced potter, you may be able to get away with doing this. But if you're just starting out, I would suggest anything this big, anything rounder than, say, the circumference of your middle finger or your pointer finger, you may need to use it at a softer drying stage on your pot. I'll show you an example of a stamp that I would usually use for the leather, hard leather stage. If you'd like to learn more about clay in general, different tips, tricks, techniques on how to hand build or how to throw on the wheel, and just art in general, then I encourage you to go check out my channel, higherperspective.art. It has hours of content, step-by-step guides and videos that go through how to pretty much do anything that you want to do with clay. I also just opened up a gold membership, and right now it is free to the public to sign up for, and you'll get gold membership access, which has content that is exclusive for members only. This is going to be a limited time offer, so please check it out and go sign up. Thanks. This is the stamp that I would usually use for something leather hard. This is also my maker's mark. My maker's mark is small enough that I could put it onto pretty much any size pot. And you can notice that it's not even as thick as my middle finger, the base of my middle finger, whereas this stamp engulfs it. So when you were thinking about making a stamp and you're thinking about using a stamp, think about how big your stamp actually is, and think about what drying stages you can use it at. Is your stamp purely for decoration, or is your stamp a maker's mark? All of these factors play into using and making a stamp. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to show you how hard it's going to be for me to actually stamp and get a good depression in a leather hard body, or a hard leather body. And from my experience, if you have a clay body or a clay vessel like this, when I throw, my walls are usually the thinnest where it isn't curved. So where it's just a straight wall, I wouldn't suggest putting a stamp there during the leather hard stage. That's because it's not structurally, it's not as strong as one of these curved areas. This curve can hold more load, or it can absorb more of that pressure that you're putting onto your clay body or your clay vessel. So usually the thickest part for most potters, unless you're really good at throwing or just really experienced, is going to be the bottom edge here, this bottom curve. Usually the bottom here is a little bit thicker, and that is always going to happen whenever you throw. You just have to trim some of that off. But I usually like to make my bottoms a little bit thicker so that I can stamp it. If for some reason I don't think my bottom area is thick enough, or if I just want to stamp, put my maker's mark and stamp it somewhere else, usually I'll put it on a curve. Very rarely do I put it on a straight edge, like this would be more of a straight edge and this would be more of a straight edge. You really don't want to do that when stamping your vessels, because that could lead to cracks or deformity if you're doing it in like say the leather stage or the soft leather stage. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try and use this stamp to, let's say, decorate the bottom here. Let's just see if I can get it in here. So I'm going to choose this area where it's starting to curve. I'm going to make sure my placement is right. I'm going to push in. When you're applying pressure with your stamp, you want to make sure that you get all sides of your stamp. So you want to go up and down and then side to side. Because this stamp is so big, it takes a lot more force or pressure, and it also takes a lot more movement to get the entire stamp on. As you can see, it did leave somewhat of the mark, but at the bottom here it didn't leave a strong line. That's because it's connecting with this curve. But it did work in getting somewhat of a depression. Now, if I use my maker's mark, my dog actually bit that side, but if I use my maker's mark, it's going to be a lot easier for me to apply pressure to the clay vessel to get a good maker's mark. So I'll demonstrate that. So same principle. You're going to apply pressure to a curve. You're going to go up and down and side to side. So I apply pressure and make sure that I have my stamp in the right placement. Press it on, go up and down, and side to side. Now that didn't take nearly as long, and it shows exactly what my maker's mark would look like. So I'll show you that one more time, guys. This is the leather hard. You could even do it up here. Leather hard, make sure the positioning of your stamp is the way you want it, the way you want it to look when you stamp it on. You're going to apply pressure, you're going to go up and down, and then you're going to go side to side. So apply pressure, up and down, side to side. And voila, just like that, the stamp is applied. Now, if I were to do this to the side, you would have a lot harder of a time to get a good depression in there, because this is a flat surface, whereas with this mark, you're pushing into more of a curve. The peak of that curve is going to be easier to depress down with your stamp. So there it is. And I'll show you one more time using this stamp on this curve. Takes a lot more pressure it doesn't want to go side to side as much. But it still leaves somewhat of a image for you. It does leave a texture, but overall you wouldn't be able to use this on a flat or straight edge, right? You wouldn't be able to use that on a straight edge just because the pressure that you would need to apply would most likely crack that wall. So as you can see, stamps do have value. Bigger stamps do have value because you can make textures very quickly with it. This maybe took me a minute just to apply it, move it, apply it, move it. I only moved it up and down. I didn't go side to side. And the same with the bottom. Now, obviously you can make this look a lot better, but this is just a piece specifically for this video and really just showing you what you can do with stamps and how you should go about using them, what you should think about when using a stamp, whether it be your maker's mark or whether it be for some sort of texture or decoration. There are different stages that you should use in that. As always guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.